Okay, this morning we saw this tweet of Donald Trump saying that he spoke with Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who spoke with Vladimir Putin of Russia. He says he expects that the oil production will be reduced by 10 million barrels per day, which will have great impact in the oil and gas industry. And later he says it could be as much as 15 million barrels per day. We saw Occidental petroleum stock spike and then maintain its level 20% higher than yesterday. And even oil producers started to sell their oil 23% higher than yesterday. These are obviously great news. However, let's deep dive into what this means and what it can mean for the oil industry. If we take a look at the biggest producers, we see USA ahead, bunch of countries from Middle East, Canada, China, Brazil. Obviously, USA, Saudi Arabia and Russia are the biggest ones. However, there is a huge leverage that Saudi Arabia has over US and Russia. And let's find out what it is. Basically, Saudi Arabia formed an alliance with all these countries, most of them from Middle East, some from Africa, and also 2 countries from South America. And these countries are forming OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. And let's see this chart. OPEC is producing 51% of oil in the world. Then we have US with over 10%, Russia over 7%, and the rest of the world that shares only 30% of the remaining oil production. So obviously Saudi Arabia as head of OPEC has huge advantage in how their decisions are being considered over all the rest of the countries. So the problem began when OPEC started to deal with Russia. They included Russia in OPEC and called this alliance OPEC-plus. OPEC-plus started in 2016, including into alliance Russia, Azerbaijan and many other countries. However, Russia is the biggest producer of these countries, and Russia is actually who broke the deal with OPEC. So at the beginning of March, when coronavirus was not pandemic yet, so Saudi Arabia is calling this meeting, already noticing the lack of demand because of coronavirus. They say they want to reduce 1.5 million barrels a day of production in order to maintain oil prices high. Remember that Saudi Arabia is really different from Occidental countries. Their economy is based on oil, and ideally they need $80 per barrel of oil price to maintain their public wealth, to pay pensions, subsidiaries, pay out public debts and so on. However, something unexpected happened. Russia rejected the cut oil production, and so on the 6th of March the oil price war began. We can see a huge drop in the same day, and even bigger one the day after that. But the problems were actually just beginning. While coronavirus was exponentially becoming pandemic, reducing the oil demand, Saudi Arabia actually increases production to their maximum capacity to 12.3 million barrels a day of production. In these bad days we saw Occidental petroleum stock go as much as 60% down in one single day. Russian biggest producer went down around 20%, and pretty much the only producer in Saudi Arabia, Aramco, went down only 10%. So while we see that Saudi Arabia needs $80 per barrel in order to meet their public targets, the real production price of Saudi is only $17 per barrel. So even at these levels of $20 per barrel, they can still make profit. The ones who will suffer will be the citizens of Saudi Arabia. But who cares about the people when the prince's ego is hurt, right? Well, actually there is more to that. Saudi Arabia forms alliance in order to raise price as high as possible, near $80 per barrel, while US believes in free market, meaning that the price should be where the demand and supply meets. So in the past 5 years, the price of oil went from $40 to around $80 per barrel, and this does not meet the need of Saudi Arabia. So they do have a big reason in order to fight USA, to hurt them, so they join the OPEC. I mean, if OPEC could control 70% of world production, there's really nobody that could lower the price below what Saudi Arabia needs. But this doesn't happen because US supply and demand model works well for them. At $50 per barrel, US shale is profitable. So what happens next in the oil price war? US creates an OPEC deal, pretty much to fight OPEC. This bill has 2 objectives. First of all, it says that countries should not group and form alliances. And second, especially crucial, is that countries should not influence price on purpose. So US called up Prince of Saudi Arabia and said that they will impose sanctions based on this bill. But how the US can put sanctions on Saudi Arabia? It's because all the oil is being traded in dollars. And so by law, US has the authority to put sanctions on what is illicitly traded in their currency. So what Saudi does? They threaten to quit dollar. And this can have huge impact. Currently all trading is protected by regulation coming from US, and because of this US controls the transparency of each transaction. And honestly, having some regulation in a free market is really beneficial for everyone. On a country level, they can impose taxes, create reporting, do planning based on transactions information. But fortunately, none of the sanctions took place. And Saudi Arabia stayed in dollar. Probably because US didn't impose sanctions in the first place, they were afraid of losing the control of the oil market. And all of this took us to today, where we see this tweet, Donald Trump expecting and hoping that they will cut back approximately 10 million barrels. This is super bold move saying they, while US is just small piece of a cake. But let's hope that's true. And we'll see oil prices go back up and all companies making profit again. But actually, even if they reduce 10 to 15 million barrels per day of production, the drop of production is 20 million barrels per day because of coronavirus. So this does not cover entirely the oversupply of oil. However, I'm happy to see this number go up, and I think you do too. Thank you for watching. See you next time.